Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. So today and tomorrow, the last day of our residence in Simachalam Dham, I will be speaking on Shri Vrindavan Dham, continuation of Shri Vrindavan Dham. The Leela will not be the same because we did first, I spoke about Damodar Leela. And then the last couple of days, last week was about Govardhan. And now we'll speak, because today is the first day, today is the day called Gopashtami. And I would speak on this, what is Gopashtami? And I wanted to read from the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, of the Srimad-Bhagavatam 10th canto. And beginning with the first verse, actually. And the first verse goes as follows. Shri Shuka Uvacha Tatascha Paugandavayaha Shritau Vraje Babuvo Tau Pashu Pala Samatau Gascharayantau Sakibi Samam Padair Vrindavanam Punyam Ativa Chakrati. So before we read Srimad-Bhagavatam, we should offer respectful obeisances. Narayana Namaskrityam Naram Chayumanarotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayet Nashta Prayesha Badreshu Nitya Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloki Bhavati Bhakti Naishtiki. By regular reciting of Srimad-Bhagavatam, we will actually, almost everything in our heart will be destroyed. Almost, it is written. So there's some leftovers that we also have to work. Not only we listen to Srimad-Bhagavatam and he said, you can say, it's not my fault that I'm acting sinfully. It's Srimad-Bhagavatam's fault, because it says everything will be eradicated and I still have something, so it's not my fault. But therefore, the statement is almost everything is eradicated. So let us offer our obeisance to Srimad-Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I just did the reverse. I read the verse first and prayers, and now in the verse also the Sanskrit, and now the prayer. Now we'll read the translation. This is again 10th canto, 15th chapter, verses 1 and on. So this is the verse 1. Shukadev Goswami said, when Lord Rama and Lord Krishna attained the age of Poganda, which is 6 to 10, while living in Vrindavan, the cowherd men allowed them to take up the task of tending the cows. Engaging thus in the company of their friends, the two boys rendered the land of Vrindavan most auspicious by imprinting upon it the marks of their lotus feet. Sorry? You said something? No. So this is actually actual Gopashtami. This is what Gopashtami means. Meaning, Lord Krishna and Balaram, they came to a certain age, which they are not anymore children, and they're not anymore Kumaras. You know, we have a Krishna Kumar, or Nanda Kumar, the name of Krishna. So they are not anymore Kumaras, they are now Pogandas, 6 to 10, ages 6 to 10. And as such, they are Nanda Maharaj and other Gopas, the older cowherd men. They were deliberating very seriously, and they concluded that Krishna and Balaram are qualified to take the cows, big cows, to the pasture. I mean, imagine 6 years old, 5 years old finished, so 6, beginning of the 60s, this is still small child, he can tend the cows in the forest. The cows are quite large. Before that, Krishna and Balaram were tending only calves, small calves. So this is you can say, the beginning of a big, important business. And this Nanda Maharaj was thinking, because he's the father of Krishna, and he was thinking, until the age before this Poganda age 6, they were not strong enough, and they were immature. Krishna and Balaram were not mature enough to tend the cows, meaning they, kids like to play, but now they become serious business. Kids are playing, and also can tend the cows, so they become serious members of the society, which is also interesting. In our society, somebody 6 years old is considered immature until 18. Only when you're 18 you're allowed to work or whatever, and everything else is considered child labor. But in cowherd community, instead of playing, with uselessly wasting their time, they're actually doing a service with the cows. We know Prahlad Maharaj, when he said, I spent so many times, the children, he said, when I was born, I wasted my time as a child. Then I spent until my whatever age, 16, 17, in useless playing. And then I spent in sports. And, he's not himself, but he's using the example. And then people get education, people work, and then in the end, people retire, and then people die. And the whole life was just wasted without any, actually, usefulness. So usefulness, here Nanda Maharaj is immediately thought, oh, he's 6 years old, he's grown up, he can do. So this is what Gopashtami means. So let's read the purport. Lord Krishna wanted to encourage his cowherd boyfriends who had been swallowed by Aghasura and then stolen by Lord Brahma. This is an amazing adventure. When I was a child, I like to read lots of adventure of Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer. Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn? So much adventure going on in the forest and by the river, Mississippi, and this is actually much more adventurous. Imagine you go to play with your friends and a big snake comes and swallows your friends. That's something big adventure. And the Krishna comes and he saves them. Imagine, Bakasura was coming, he opened his mouth, and the cowherd boys thought, it must be some demon. Let's go inside and let him eat us so that Krishna can show how great he is, how powerful he can kill him. And they're all like very happily walking inside with playing, dancing, going into their death. And Lord Balaram was like confused, what's going on? This is their death, and they're dancing, going inside. But of course, Krishna immediately came, and as soon as the baka closed their beak, Krishna came and, as they Prabhupada used the words, bifurcated, means he broke his beak on two. So this is all adventures. And then on top of it, Lord Brahma, just recently, before this event, Lord Brahma stole all the boys and brought them to Brahma Loka. And Krishna manifests from his own body the same exact cowherd boys, that even their mothers could not recognize them. And all the calves the Brahma stole, he also manifested calves. So the cows also were licking calves, and they were thinking, this is my child. They couldn't recognize. So this is like a huge adventure. If you want to read an adventure, this is the adventure. Krishna. So, so then Krishna thought, he wanted to, listen to this, he wanted to encourage, to reward his friends. Because his friends is so much suffering in Krishna's mind, with all these demons, and let me reward them. How do I reward them? Let's bring them some nice fruit to eat. Again, the cowherd man and the people in Vrindavan are generally very simple people. And they're satisfied with very simple. And this is a fruit, apparently. Tal fruit. So, the purport says, since Lord Krishna's spiritual body had apparently grown slightly in age and strength, The senior men of Vrindavan, headed by Nanda Maharaj, decided to promote Krishna from the task of herding calves to the status of a regular cowherd boy. It becomes official regular, however. He would take care of the grown-up bulls, cows, and oxen. It is stated in the Kartika Mahatmya, section of Padma Purana. Shukla Ashtami Kartiketu Smrita Gopashtami Buddha Tad Dina Vasudeva Bud Gopa Purvam Tu Vatsapaha. The eighth lunar day of the bright fortnight of the month of Kartik, this is exactly today, is known by authorities as Gopashtami. From that day, Lord Vasudeva served as a cowherd, whereas previously he attended the calves. So this is one very important thing, that everything about Krishna is important. Everything about Krishna is important. Everything about Krishna's great devotees is important. But particularly everything about Krishna, there's nothing that is not important. We heard last night, Ananda Krishna Prabhu gave a lecture. He was speaking how for devotees, even we may be attracted to particular rasa, like Madhurya rasa. We cannot say this is less important, Vasudeva Krishna, or different incarnations of Krishna, Vishnu incarnations and so on. Because everything is important about Krishna. Because everything is transcendental. So every moment, every second is important. And every moment, every second is actually unlimitedly spiritual with unlimited varieties. As Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, I want to print the daily newspaper. So his disciple said, Maharaj, how do we print a daily newspaper? you need to have so much information to print daily newspaper. This is a lot. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, well, the spiritual world is 3/4 of the entire creation. Material world is only 1/4. And if this material world, you can have so many daily newspapers, how much more can you have? How much more information can you have if you actually print the news from the spiritual world? And this is exactly what it is. Krishna's such an important thing. Somebody is passing from 5th to 6th year of his life, and this is like a big event. Actually, it's a festival, Gopashtami. So, and what else is important in this verse? The purport says, the word Padai indicates that Lord Krishna blessed the earth by walking on her surface with his lotus feet. So previously, Krishna was walking only in his courtyard, a little bit around. But now, Krishna walks all over the forest. And this is, how is he walking? The Lord wore no shoes or other footgear, but walked barefoot in the forest, giving great anxiety to the girls of Vrindavan, who feared that his soft lotus feet would be injured. So Krishna is actually walking barefoot. So our God has no shoes. He has shoes, but he doesn't wear them. Because we know Nanda Maharaj, there's a famous story when Nanda Maharaj asked Krishna to bring him shoes, and Krishna was so small he couldn't bring 2 shoes, so he brought 1. He put on his head and he carried the shoes to Nanda Maharaj. So they have some shoes, but outside apparently they don't wear them. I cannot imagine that the Vrindavan is full of thorns that Krishna can walk on, or stones. I'm sure everything is very smooth and very favorable, but still the gopis they're breaking their hearts thinking about Krishna, lotus feet, walking on this earth. They're thinking, oh, his soft feet, because Krishna is actually a very soft body. It is described in many places. Sometimes they point Krishna as a muscular. Krishna is not muscular like we know, weightlifters. Krishna has a very proportionate body, very strong body, but it's not muscular. His body is very soft. And particularly his feet are very soft. And even little fatty. You know, when we see pictures, you know, this is actually how they're little fat. So particularly the baby Krishna, and we sing in the morning, or evening actually, rather, Tri Rekanka Kanta. This is the Damodarashtaka. Tri Reka means 3 lines. So imagine your throat has 3 lines, meaning you're so fat that there's like 3 lines in your throat. Your throat is you're very, very fat. So this is Krishna. And so Krishna is not, skinny or austere, or Krishna is very comfortably, his body is very comfortable, looking very comfortable, very pleasant. Anyways, we will not speak about Krishna's body, but just the point that Krishna is blessing the whole earth by walking on it. The Mother Earth is very happy that Krishna actually steps on her. This is a very rare and very blessed event that Krishna steps on you. Imagine, Krishna steps on your head to Bali Maharaj. And also there was an instance in Chaitanya Charitamrita when Lord Nityananda kicked Shivananda Sena in the chest. Imagine Lord Nityananda comes in. You didn't arrange for us to eat. I'm hungry. Where's the food? And Shivananda said, well, I didn't have a time. And he said, you didn't have a time. And he kicked him in the chest. And Shivananda started dancing, you know. I was kicked by Lord Nityananda's lotus foot. Imagine sometimes the celebrities, they sign signature on your hand, and people don't wash the hand for like 2 years, because it's a signature by a famous person. So being kicked by Lord Nityananda, I would not shower to the end of my life probably. There's a lotus foot of Lord Nityananda on your chest, So anyways, and another thing is that gopis, the young girls in Vrindavan, they have a very great anxiety. And I spoke about anxiety for Krishna last week, or whatever, 2 weeks ago. It is actually important to have anxiety for Krishna because we are, by nature, full of anxiety. And the verse is, it is 11th canto, 2nd chapter, verse 37. Bhayam dvitiya vinibeshata syat, ishat apetasa viparyayo smritihi, tan mayayato buddha abhajetam, bhaktya aikayesham gurudeva tatma. So fear arises, or anxiety arises, when a living entity misidentifies himself as the material body because of the absorption of the external illusory energy of the Lord. So we are always full of fear. Anybody who has identified with the material world, with the material body, is naturally full of anxieties, full of fears. This is what it is. I always now after some living some time in this material body, whenever I feel something's going really well, I'm thinking, when is this going to end? Because it will end very soon. Something will happen, some problem will arise, and something will happen. And because this is the experience. In my 56 years, the experience is, if something's going really well, you know it's coming. Soon. Sooner or later it's coming. So, but instead of being anxiety about, and what is this anxiety? Is about myself. About my health, about my this and my that. But actually, the whole point of Krishna consciousness is to transfer or transform your anxiety from yourself to Krishna. And you actually have an anxiety for Krishna. And we have to go, Bhakta Brian has to go shop for Krishna. He doesn't shop for himself, 200 liters of milk. He cannot drink it by himself, but he shops for Krishna. Or whatever, this, and then you drive and then something breaks, the car breaks, and you think, oh my God. This is anxiety for Krishna. You go to fix it. You have to do this and that. All for Krishna. I was, many years ago, I was a temple president in one place, and I went to visit my family. And my father asked me, what are you doing? And I told him, well, I'm a president. And he said, what do you do? So I explained to him, what am I doing? And he was impressed. He was very impressed. He said, well, this, responsibility and all these people, not just for you, but for other people. And also with this was a restaurant. And then he said, this is all nice, but how much money do you get for yourself? I said, well, that's not the point, I tried to explain to him. He could not understand, of course, because materialists, they cannot understand. It has to be, okay, it's nice for you to do this, but what about for yourself? But anxiety is only for Krishna, is actually a perfection of life. That we always have an anxiety for Krishna. How is Krishna walking out in the forest barefoot? Oh my God, he will, prick his soft lotus feet. This is what gopis are thinking. They didn't think like, oh, but he, no, they're thinking about Krishna and anxiety for Krishna. So this is the one thing. Then, another interesting thing is that, Krishna has a footprints. In a footprint, he has a different signs. He has the umbrella and I don't know what else, flag and all these other symbols. And when he was small, when he would stop, these symbols would not be imprinted in the earth because he was too light, But now, since he's older, he's 6 years old, he's heavier and he could actually make an imprint in this earth, So this is interesting. So Krishna is becoming more prominent. We know when Akrura came to Vrindavan, first thing, he didn't see Krishna, he saw the imprints of Krishna's feet. And he immediately jumped into it and started rolling in the dust of Vrindavan. And Prabhupada says, this is the ideal way of entering Vrindavan Dham. First of all, we should look for Krishna's footprints. And if there's no Krishna's footprints, we are not able to see it, I'm sure there are, then we should just roll in the Vrindavan dust, forgetting our, Prabhupada says, false identification, our puffed upness of being somebody in the material world. So we just roll in the ground. And all these pilgrims, you look at who has this Angreji rolling in the dust. But we don't care because this is what the Shastra advise. So, this is another thing. What happened with Krishna Bala, we're describing this very first moment or first day when Gopashtami started, So all the Krishna was prepared, the cowherd boys are prepared, everybody's prepared to go to first steps into the forest. Very big event. It's a big event. And so what happened at that moment, the cows, the small cows, but Krishna was herding them for many years, they said, we don't want to stay back. We want to go with Krishna. Of course, they didn't speak, but they just, animals, they just don't, you cannot control the animals. They just go. And they followed the big cows, small calves. And even the small bulls, they followed. So they were all thinking, what should we do now? The cowherd men, what should we do? This never happened before. So what can they do? So they just let them, okay, what can we do? Krishna, they attached to Krishna, so they went together. So, but even then, even the other residents of Vrindavan, they did not want to stay back. Who wants to stay back when Krishna goes to the forest? Nobody. The gopis, young gopis, Shinisimha ki jai, Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. The young gopis, they cannot go, they're not allowed because they are girls. They cannot go to the forest with the boys. So they were just in huge separation waiting for Krishna to return back. And until Krishna took over these big cows, Nanda Maharaj was personally herding the cows in the forest. So Nanda Maharaj now stays back while Krishna is going. So Nanda Maharaj is basically always in separation from Krishna. At least Yashoda had association with Krishna fully as long as he was a baby, first 5 years. But Nanda Maharaj has to do household duties and he has to tend the cows, so he was half a day at least did not see Krishna. And now also he cannot see Krishna because Krishna is going to the forest. So what did Nanda Maharaj do? He built a big tower in front of Vrindavan, like at the entrance of Vrindavan village. huge tower, so they can climb on the tower and see when is Krishna coming back. You know, this is the importance of, you know. So because they wanted to see, and then how do they figure out that Krishna is coming back? Krishna comes back, and first you can see the cloud of dust. And you would say, Krishna is coming back, and the whole village would come to receive Krishna. So interesting enough, Krishna is in this verse, the first verse of herding the cows. This is, 1 second. Krishna is called Madhava. Here, tan Madhavo venum udirayan vrito. This is the verse was supposed to be on the blackboard. 10:15:2. Tan Madhavam venum udirayan vrito. Sorry? No. So, they said, desiring to enjoy the pastimes, Lord Madhava, sounding his flute, surrounded by cowherd boys, who were chanting his glories and accompanied by Lord Balaram, kept the cows before him and entered the Vrindavan forest, which was full of flowers and rich with nourishment for the animals. So Lord Madhava, this is significant here, his name Madhava. Different acharyas, interestingly, as always, different acharyas interpret these names of a particular situation in different ways. So Sanatana Goswami, the word Madhava means Krishna, who is the consort of the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi. So he's a, you know, he's a lover of, we sing Jaya Radha Madhava. So this is a lover of Radha, Radha Madhava. So this is also, Sanatana Goswami said this. That this name also implies that Krishna descended in the dynasty of Madhu. And since spring season is also known as Madhava, it is understood that as soon as Lord Krishna entered Vrindavan, automatically the forest exhibited all the opulences of the spring, filled with flowers, breezes, and celestial atmosphere. So this is, wherever Krishna is, we know Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, the verse from the last verse in the Bhagavad Gita, which explains wherever there's Krishna, and with Arjuna, there's always extraordinary opulence, power, and victory. And wherever, so when Krishna enters the forest has to offer the best. You know, when the president or whatever big state come, they offer always the best. They don't offer, oh, we have some leftovers of dal, would you like to take some dal? As a president, you know, cook the best preparations. Even if he cannot eat it, it's for the president, whatever, or an important person. So, so what to speak of Krishna? The nature offered all the best. The breezes, the forest is lush, and everything is wonderful. And the best spring, the best season is spring. Because summer is too hot, you know, the herbst is a little rainy, cold sometimes. Winter is very cold. But spring is nice, you know, everything is alive and the greens start growing and the birds, suddenly you hear the birds and everything is somehow, they said all this, you know, boys and girls fall in love in spring because it's spring, you know. Somehow everything is pleasant and you think, wow, this is a nice life is great. So when Krishna entered the forest, it becomes suddenly a very nice spring season, although it's now. Gopashtami is a little bit, you know, in Vrindavan is a little bit cold, you know. So, and another reason why Krishna's name is Madhava is because he enjoys the pastime in Madhu state or conjugal love, Madhurya Rasa. And another, you know, of course, I'm not a Sanskrit scholar to just exactly, but the Madhu means also honey. And we know honey is very sweet. And honey has a special sweetness, you know, it's sugar or stevia, can be bitter sometimes, or sugar can be, you know, sometimes you drink sugar and burning your, you know, here, the throat, so much sugar. But honey somehow, there's also like a, you know, character with the sweetness. So Krishna's Madhurya Rasa, therefore he's also named Madhu. Madhava. So now what is interesting here is that Krishna, in this verse 52, that Krishna desiring to enjoy his pastimes, that actually Krishna desires things. Hare Krishna. The Krishna desires things, that means that he's a living entity, he's a being. He desires. Ichchadari, this is the energy of Krishna. Meaning that this is desire of energy, the energy of Krishna that is responsible for desiring. So Krishna desires something, has to be fulfilled. We desire so many things but not happening. I want this and not, what can you do? We cannot. So everybody has limitations. Otherwise our desires will fulfilled, will be all like crazy. This world will be completely crazy. But not possible. Our desires and our minds and our bodies are different things. So I desire things and like too bad for you. You just have to tolerate. And then we take shelter of the, astrology. The planets, are not favorable now and this. But the reality is this is our inability to fulfill our desires. And we just have to find some philosophy to justify it, as usual, we do. But Krishna doesn't have these limitations. His desiring and reality is the same. So he desired to enjoy the pastimes. It's not like he was sent by Nanda Maharaj and he's hating and thinking like, oh my God, I cannot wait to come back. Like we did when we were in school. Your parents want you to do something and you think, okay, I'll do it begrudgingly. Krishna did not go to the forest of Vrindavan begrudgingly. He desired to go to see his forest. And then what did he do? When they slowly entering the forest, he sounded his flute. Krishna sounded his flute. And I think tomorrow will be more about the flute. Flute is very important in Krishna's pastimes. There's all kinds of different flutes Krishna has. But this particular flute is like what is the size of the flute? 3 fingers length. So 1, 2, 3 fingers length. So it's something like this. Very small flute. Krishna was very small. Imagine a small child, he's carrying this huge flute. But he's a very small child, 5 years old, and he has a little flute, and he's playing. He has bigger, but in this particular day, he had this little one. Because he's a child. So Krishna and the other boys start playing the flute. This is what happened. And interesting enough, those of us who had karma to witness, my grandparents were actually they were like kind of living in the cowherd community, you can say. And I know from when I was very young, this is like the 70s, the people who actually heard the cows, they always had some flute to play. This is interesting. They knew how to make flute from different trees, and they would play flute. This was the entertainment for herding the cows, or sheep. They would just sit in. Because what are you going to do all day? The cows are eating. There's nothing like, no adventure there. Not like cows are now doing something extraordinary. They're eating grass. So you sit there and there's no TV, there's no internet, and you just, how about play some flute? So this is what's going on. Krishna and cowherd boys, Krishna sounded his flute. And cowherd boys chanting the glories of Krishna. And the glories of Krishna were, I just mentioned in the beginning, killing this demon and that demon. And they was like, wow, Krishna killed this, But when they glorify Krishna, this is actually poetry, chanting the glories of Krishna. And as we know, as soon as Krishna start crawling, meaning he started moving on his own, he was almost immediately accompanied by Balaram. And after this, they said they were never separate. They ate together, they slept together, they were always together. Krishna and Balaram were always together. So when Krishna went to the forest, who went with him? Balaram. So all these cows were ready to go, and Krishna and Balaram, they're playing flute, and everything is, everybody's watching them. And the forest in the distance was full of flowers and rich with nourishment for the animals. So everything is so favorable. The spring, It's a wonderful day. It's a wonderful day. So this is what's going on there. And so flute is a very important thing. Again, I will speak a little more, but I just want to mention, I just found the Prabhupada's letter to a devotee in 1971 to Los Angeles. There's a deity of Rukmini Dwarkadish. Rukmini Dwarkadish actually is a Krishna, Radha Krishna, somehow Prabhupada named it Rukmini Dwarkadish because he wanted Los Angeles to be, they call it New Dwarka, opulent, to be opulent, and it is. At least it was. So Krishna stands like this, and then this devotee who was in charge sent Prabhupada picture. This is the now picture of our Rukmini Dwarkadish. And Prabhupada answer, why is Krishna without a flute? What is the difficulty to make for Krishna a flute? You can take a twig and wrap it in a golden lace with a pearl drop hanging. That is a flute. How long it takes to make? Nothing, this is the punchline, nothing should be concocted, not that a flower in place of flute. So probably devotees were thought, how about if Krishna holds a garland or something, so they put flowers instead of flute. And Prabhupada says, what is this nonsense? No speculation. So we don't speculate how the Krishna looks like or what Krishna does. As I always joke with my dear friend Pracharyananda, that there was one, we had some program and there was one Indian man and he lifted up his hand. We had any questions and lifted up his hand and he said, I saw him, he was 16 years old. He saw Krishna. I said, yes. It's not so easy, first of all, then, whatever. But we appreciate the sentiment. And there was also Prabhupada criticized one particular, how would you say it, famous person or sannyasi from India who went to America and who was apparently in the 1900s, early 1900s. And he apparently went to New York. And one night, the rain was, rainy on the roofs of New York buildings. And he saw Krishna sitting on the roof of a New York building. And Prabhupada says, this is speculation. Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. So we don't speculate how Krishna does, what Krishna does. And so rather we accept what is written in the Shastra. And Srila Prabhupada said for the pictures, authorized pictures painted by his disciples, they're the windows of the spiritual world. So these books are also windows of the spiritual world. Meaning the Goswamis are were kind enough to describe what's going on in the spiritual world. Shukadeva Goswami described, this is what's going on, Krishna and Balaram. He did not read this anywhere, he actually realized this. Imagine, Shukadeva Goswami actually just saw these pastimes, and he narrated. And we have also our Goswamis, our seventh Goswami Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in many songs he described his experience of the spiritual world. There's a chapter he describes the glories of Radhakund, and how actually it is in the spiritual realm, and Narottam Das Thakur and so many other devotees. So this is the kindness of the sadhus, and these are the authorized views. So we don't read unauthorized, or we don't speculate how does Krishna is dressed. Maybe he's dressed in pants, or maybe he has a watch. It is described here what he does. So then what Krishna, so this is the beginning, so this is Krishna Balaram and the cowherd boys, they're leaving the village, and they say, okay, Hari Bol, see you later. Everybody was so devastated, there's little Krishna, and I'm sure Madhya Yashoda was completely in anxiety. Her little boy is going to tend the big cows. I mean, you can see these big cows, and if very few people will not have fear to stand between the big cows, with the horns and everything. So these are little boys, they're like, tending the cows. So they left the village and they're entering now the forest for the first time. So Krishna says to the friends, my dear friends, see, how is this forest of Vrindavan full of transcendental creepers and trees? The tops of the creepers are full of flowers, and intoxicated bumblebees are buzzing around them, humming songs that please the ear and surpass even the Vedic hymns. So this is For a long time, I couldn't understand the beauty of the bumblebees. What's so beautiful about, because for us it's dangerous, But for Krishna, because this bumblebee is making this sound, so this makes it pleasant. And I said, it's a more pleasant, pleased ear, and surpassed even the Vedic hymns. So when we recite Vedic hymns, we recite Bhagavad Gita, we recite in Cologne, every Abhishek, during the Abhishek we recite Brahma Samhita. Chintamani Prakara. It sounds very nice, very pleasing. But the humming of the bees is more pleasing. So this is what is beautiful. And it is described, again, I have to repeat. When Krishna comes in the forest, it looks like he's covered with the black clouds because there's so many bees surrounding him. Because this Krishna's garland is so fragrant, and so all the bees were attracted to the garland. Of course, because it's Krishna's. So, but this makes an interesting picture, you can say. Anyway, so this is by the bees. And this verse is spoken by Krishna to his cowherd boy friend Madhu Mangal. Madhu Mangal is a very interesting character, very unique personality, and is one of the most dearest devotees of Krishna. So let me see. So the flute we'll talk about tomorrow. So another meaning of the word Madhava, which I somehow skipped there, is that also means that Krishna, it's a month called Madhava, which is a spring month, which means that Krishna, like spring, caused the forest to rejoice with blossoms. So when Krishna entered the forest was so pleased that just gave flowers immediately. So meaning, if we have Krishna in our hearts, and if we worshiping Krishna, ultimately, we can never get, we'll also, our creeper or our forest of our material enjoyment will dry up and will fill up with wonderful flowers of Krishna consciousness, and the forest to rejoice with blossoms. Therefore, it's very important when we worship Krishna. Then we maintain our body for Krishna. And it says, Manasa Deho Geho, Yo Kichumor Arpiluntuva Padananda Kishore. That the devotees actually understand that this body is, as we call it, temple of the Lord. That Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was cleaning the Gundicha temple in Puri, they said that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was cleaning it so well, they said this is the temple, the altar has to be so clean that they can be worthy of Krishna to sit on, to stand on. So it's the same way our hearts needs to be so clean so we can let Krishna stand in our hearts. Because it is described somewhere that everybody has a Paramatma. Paramatma is accompanied every living entity in the material world. But the devotee who is completely surrendered to Krishna, Krishna resides in his heart. It's not anymore Paramatma. It's Krishna personally. And Krishna is directing the devotee. And therefore it's we see the devotee who are completely dedicated, they have nothing to you can say worry, like for example, we're reading this Vedanta Sutra, Baladevi Vidyabhushana describes why is it important to die in a certain time. Why is it important to die during the daytime? In Bhagavad Gita, they said if one dies during the daytime, and one who dies when this star goes to the north, whatever, this is sometime in November until whatever, June or May. When somebody dies in this period, calendar period, and dies during the daytime, he is guaranteeing liberation. But if they don't, then it's not guaranteed. So I was like, what is it? I read Bhagavad Gita so many times, I was wondering, why is it? And in Vedanta Sutra, it is described why. Because this is the time when the sun has the longest rays, and so when you die in the daytime, you can actually catch these rays and get liberation from the material world, which was like a shocking revelation for me. But for devotee, so it makes sense. If it's dark, there's no sun rays. So where are you gonna, you cannot go to higher because there's no sun rays. So for me it was like, wow, Veda is actually so practical. Even this supposedly mystical and esoteric, it's a very practical thing. The bus line doesn't work at night, but that's it. If you want to take it to this place, then you have to go when it's operating. So it's a very simple, very practical thing. So, but for the devotee, it is described for the devotee who has actually Krishna in his heart. This doesn't matter day or night or because this person is completely already with Krishna, and Krishna takes care of everything. So this is what I wanted to say about this. And then for the end, when Krishna Balaram entered the forest with the cowherd boys and everything, everything is so natural. Everything is made of natural elements. So this is important here. Prabhupada says here, I don't know where from, I just made this note. The natural products created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead should be utilized to maintain the bodies and soul of all living entities. So that's why Prabhupada says, we are eating little milk, we are drinking a little milk, we are eating fruit, we make a little chapati from the wheat, because these are all things made from the natural elements. And even some, renunciates, which is described in Srimad-Bhagavatam, they even live outside. Of course, now this is not so easy. The soft grass is their bed, the hand is their pillow, and the sky is their blanket. Because material elements, ultimately, it's everything there to maintain the bodies and soul of all living entities. The necessities of life are three types. One, those produced from the sky, rainfall. Without rain, this will be a deadly desert. And then we'll have nothing to eat, maybe a few figs, or what is the name of the dates, as they eat in desert. So there will be not much to eat. Rainfall, also not much water to be showered. No rivers. Then this is the three types, one from the rainfall, one from the earth, and one from the fields. So from the earth comes mines, from the mines, seas or fields. We have all kinds of pots and this all come from the earth. Without earth, we'll not be able to have anything. And then from the atmosphere. From the atmosphere, it is described out here, which is obtained suddenly and unexpectedly. This, I don't know, don't quote me on this. So we have to understand this, that everything ultimately is Krishna's energy, everything is Krishna's. Krishna provided, there's this 10 subjects of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. It is described in 12th canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam. What are the main subjects of Srimad-Bhagavatam? And one of the subjects is that Krishna actually provides everything. Krishna provides this planet Earth, provides all these things for our nourishment, for our maintenance, for our living. So we should always be appreciative of Krishna, and we should understand, this is Krishna. When you see the forest, you understand, this is Krishna. It's Krishna's forest. And the reason Krishna created this forest is for us to be comfortable, to live well. But what are we doing? Destroying the forest. Let's destroy the forest. How about if we grow some vegetables and then sprinkle poison on it? That would be really nice. And then people are born now and is autistic. I heard this in America, there's like every fourth child or something is autistic. Very high, in a certain degree. Because of the food you eat, what food you're eating, what water are we drinking, what is all unnatural. And so, as Prabhupada says, we have to go back to Godhead. And I researched a little bit, what is Prabhupada, where is this coming from? Because whatever Prabhupada's slogans, whatever he gave, they came from somewhere when he was in his youth, either study or something like this. When he said, the Lord of all I survey. You know what Prabhupada says, you're not the Lord of all, you survey. And this is coming from a poet who was stranded this is a famous poem at that time, I guess, when Prabhupada was a student. the sailor who was stranded on an isolated island alone, and he would be wander around and he sees only the animals. He was alone. He had some quarrel with the captain. They had a big fight. And the sailor gets so angry and he said, just drop me off the ship and I don't want to see you anymore. So they dropped him off the ship in the next island. But he didn't know that this island was completely not populated. So he was just with the animals and he would not know what to do. And he wrote this poem and he said, how I yearn for the chatter of the people in the market, to hear the sound. And he said, although I'm the Lord of all I survey, I am still unhappy. So Prabhupada used this, the Lord of all you survey. Means that everything you see, I'm the Lord of it. So Prabhupada says, you should not think that you are the Lord of all you survey. So in the Back to Godhead, Prabhupada used this. We have the magazine, Back to Godhead. In Germany, Zurück zur Gottheit. Came from one another poet. Unfortunately, I cannot quote it, which one. But this is another poet, what Prabhupada probably studied when he was a student. And he said that this person, that basically I'm paraphrasing, that we have forgotten, basically that God created everything in the earth, everything, the forest, the nature, the fields and everything. I think this was the beginning of industrial revolution, so everything wanted to be industrialized, mechanized. And he said we should let this all and go back to Godhead, meaning we should go back to the land, and this is where Godhead is, actually, on the land. So we should go back to Godhead. Prabhupada says, Prabhupada wanted his devotees to go back to Godhead, to actual Godhead, but also to go back to Godhead, to go back to the land, to don't live artificially. The problem is that those of us who never lived in the this village setting or earthly, living in the forest and fields, working in the fields, is very difficult because our minds are not, bodies and minds are not meant for this. There was once the instance when one devotee, I think there was Harikesh Prabhu, he told Prabhupada, Prabhupada, I cannot live in the farm. I'm New Yorker, I'm from New York. And Prabhupada says, Rajas, you are Rajasic. He says, this is the reason why you cannot live in the farm. Not him, but in general. Because the Rajas means passion, restlessness. The people who live on the land, they're just, this is what they do, and they don't have any other aspirations. They're just like, I was once in a farm in Tennessee, and I found these old magazines from the 70s. They made a magazine. I forgot what was the name. This devotee who was living there, and he wanted to do exactly what Prabhupada wanted. He would carve, this yoke for the bulls. He would with hand. He would make the cart. Everything is Prabhupada wanted everything to be made from the materials on the land. So he wanted to do this, and then there was one interview, and he said, you have to be very patient with animals. It's a bull goes certain speed, and you cannot go faster. You have to follow the bull. And bull, you know how bulls walk. So you have to become, and he said, you have to become in one way like a bull yourself. Slow, So this is living in the land, means this is mode of goodness. To live peacefully, to worship the land, to appreciate the land, and to understand everything, everything is Krishna's. And during the winter time, when you cannot do so much, unless you're in Florida or whatever, in Brazil. But here is the winter time. Then you just chant Hare Krishna, enjoy the hard work of your labor of the summertime, and just read Srimad-Bhagavatam and chant Hare Krishna. So this is like a simple formula. And Prabhupada would be very pleased. Prabhupada is very pleased with this thing. And also, Krishna is very pleased. So when they said, when Krishna enter the forest, he would think, he would be very much, what did we say? Stay in the Vrindavan too? Enjoy Vrindavan atmosphere. So Krishna entered the forest and he would just enjoy the atmosphere of Vrindavan. So if we ever create something for Krishna to come and enjoy the atmosphere, he would be very happy. That's why it's nice when we have this festival here. Then Nrsimhadev is going out of the temple and he goes to visit all his land. This is your land. We have forest today. Nrsimhadev is in the forest in a mood of a cowherd boy. So we show Krishna, this is what you have. So this would be what I want to say about Gopashtami. It's a very important day in Krishna's life. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Would anybody like to maybe ask anything or yes, Bhakti Stas?
Thank you very much, Jaya Sacinandana Prabhu, for the lecture. I wanted to ask, sometimes it's very difficult to even imagine some facts and things, so what was described in, for example, Krishna book and so on, and it's very difficult for my analytical mind. And yes, for example, this statement that the Putana was 8 kilometers big, or that on Kurukshetra died 1,600 million people, or something like this.
600.
It's something that's really very difficult for me to imagine, and I wanted to ask you how I can deal with it, because it's make me so many contradictions, and then it's difficult to believe actually. So what can I do against these doubts?
You cannot do anything about it. You cannot do anything about the facts that Nanda Maharaj had 4 billion cows, or whatever the number is, huge number, and that Krishna jumps off the mountain, which was how many kilometers tall, and he jumped off the mountain. How can somebody jump 60 kilometers, whatever, 80 kilometers? And one devotee asked once Prabhupada, this mountain is supposedly in Gujarat, and we see in Gujarat there is no such mountains. So where did they jump from? Because Krishna and Balaram were chased by Kalayavana, but they burnt the mountain. There was not Kalayavana, there was a Jarasandha, I think. And they surrounded, they put the wood somehow and they burned the mountain. How can you burn the mountain anyways? So they asked Prabhupada, there is no such a mountain in Gujarat, So where was this mountain, where is it? And Prabhupada answered, angrily, in the sky, and turned away and walked away. So, because you cannot see it, that doesn't mean that it never happened. First of all, this was many, many years ago, 5,000 years ago. There were different yuga. And second of all, because you cannot see it now, doesn't mean that it is not true. And therefore, to come back again to the nature of pramana, you heard this word, pramana, the evidence or Beweis auf Deutsch. Beweis. Weißt du what Beweis is? Like when I see light outside, I assume that it's sunny. So this is the Beweis, my Wahrnehmung, my direct perception. So therefore, we take Beweis, we take this advice or pramana from 3 main sources. Direct perception, when we can see Lord Nrsimhadev is there. You don't need to tell me, it is there, I see him. Also, we take from the induction, meaning we are thinking about it, like as I said, I see the light, and therefore from my small brain I can conclude it must be sunny outside or must be light outside. Or sometimes you hear the tractor, and we don't see the tractor, but we hear it, and you think, oh, because I've experienced, the tractors are here, and therefore there must be a tractor, although I don't know. So this is also when we read Srimad-Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and we think, oh, Krishna did this, so it must be true. I don't see it, but it must be because he's Krishna, he can do anything. But this first 2 pramanas could be used, but they also could have faults. Like you can see something wrong from a distance. You can see something wrong. We were once walking, me and my wife, in the forest. That was in Golokadam, and then it was a very sunset, almost dark, and from a distance we saw. So we were not sure. I was not sure was it an animal, or is it, sometimes the tree falls and then takes the roots like this. So you just see the shades and you don't know was it an animal or. So the closer we are coming, the we realize it's not an animal. It's just a tree roots. So it could be mistaken. And this also, maybe there's no tractor, maybe somebody just made the recording of the tractor under your window, and he plays this and you say, oh, there's a tractor going on, but it's not. So these two could be right, but could also be wrong. But therefore, we accept the Shastra as the ultimate pramana, the scripture as the ultimate conclusion, the ultimate evidence that this is actually what happened. Because this pramana is not given by not written by any human being, and they are authorized by the great acharyas, by the great teachers, and therefore it's authorized. So therefore, when we read Prabhupada's books, we understand this is what happened. I may not understand, but it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. I do not understand it. And therefore, instead of trying to understand this, we try to apply Krishna consciousness, and Prabhupada says, eventually everything will be understandable. There was in Madhva Samparadaya, there was one devotee, I cannot recall his name, Jnana Sindhu, one of the devotees, acharyas in Madhva Sampradaya. He left his body, he died, he was a big sannyasi, disciples, he died, and then after like a few days later, he came in a dream of his disciple, most faithful disciple, and he said, I actually always wanted to explain about the nature of the universe, how does the universe look like, but now I can see it in full, because he left his body, and he said, I want to enter your body and write this book. So he entered the body of a disciple and wrote a book called Bhugola. And this book is actually described what does the universe look like, because he has seen it. So sometimes like this, we don't understand how many cows or how many this. And instead of being stuck with the cows, be stuck with the, how can I control lust? How can I control anger? How can I control greed? How can I hear the Hare Krishna mantra better? This thing you can control. Maha mantra. This is you can control it. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. I can control it. But the mountain of 80 kilometers I cannot control. I can read it and I was think, okay, Hare Krishna. Just like, how do you accept in Nrisimhadeva as being there, sitting on the altar? Yes? No? Somewhat.
If I can accept it, I can see that
He's there, yes. But how do you do this? Because you're chanting, you're singing, you offer obeisance, you get some reciprocation, you think, okay, he is there. But when you look at it logically, he's a piece of stone sitting there and you think this is God. For Christians or whatever, the Muslims, they would think like, this is most no-nos. But for us, this is normal, because we have some kind of realization of it. How many times we read Nrisimhadeva appeared in somebody's dream, or, Ramananda probably has many experiences. So, like this, just like this. Do something which is you can control, and then you will see the other things will either make not much sense, or you will not be interested. I'm particularly not interested, but I spent some time studying the material universe from the 5th canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam. There was a time, this one devotee, sannyasi, was sponsored by Ambarish Maharaj. That was before the temple was starting to build in Mayapur. And there was two groups. The one group was a very conservative group, and they asked me to join them somehow or other to read all these books. We were reading Surya Siddhanta and Puranas. I think my duty was Puranas, 6 or 7 Puranas, I don't know how many I read, to find out about the universe. And they were reading Surya Siddhanta, whatever the books. And the other group was more like studying from the mundane scientist's point of view. So they wanted to see both views, and see, because they wanted to build Vedic planetarium. And I read this and read and this and that. We discussed in the evening who read what and what is it. And after some time, we all realized this is just, I don't want to say waste of time, but we cannot understand this. We realize, all of us, even these super conservative people, this is beyond our senses. We cannot understand this. So the conclusion was, let's make it best what we can with our senses. But this is impossible. With our senses are so limited to understand the material universe. And this was then, after this, I never bothered anymore with the material universe. This I can understand. Krishna entering the forest. It's much nicer, sweeter. You can chant extra Hare Krishna mantra, chant 16 rounds. You can chant, 18 rounds on the Kadashis, for example. And try to do some extra service, try to do some extra readings. And you will see from there, these things will, even if they don't make sense, will somehow make sense. And you will not even care. You will develop the faith in Krishna, that Krishna can do anything. Anything. If he can create this material universe by not being there, imagine you create a universe and you're just not even there. This is cool. You know what I mean? This is, I don't want to say gangster, but this is the gangster. You sit in your convertible, and then you just like, okay, material world, and you don't even care. Imagine, this is Krishna. So, yeah.
But why then we have so much information from the Shastras that we cannot understand with our senses? It just makes life more difficult to understand.
Yes, makes life more difficult, but makes also Krishna get covered. Krishna's leelas are so elevated, and these things covers himself, protects himself from faithless, from the faithless, people who have no faith. People who will offend Krishna. The ninth offense is instructing the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. This is the ninth offense. So Krishna protects himself from these who are faithless. Anybody can buy Krishna book. Anybody in this world can buy Krishna book. But not everybody will understand. They're thinking, what is this? The mountain is so high and he has 16,000 wives. Who can marry 16,000 wives? And this is, Krishna protects himself from the faithless. And people have doubts, this is all ignorance, actually. Doubts, ignorance. Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita, the doubts, Arjuna, you have doubts, this is a sign of ignorance. You should slash these doubts with a sword of knowledge. Just like that, protecting. Lord Chaitanya is open, but Lord Chaitanya is called Channa Avatar, hidden avatar. How is this? Everybody knows Lord Chaitanya, but somehow he's hidden. In the same way, how can he be God? How can somebody from Bengal be God? And therefore it's a great mystery. Krishna is a great mystery. And therefore we can spend lifetimes and lifetimes talking about Krishna and trying to figure out Krishna. So instead of dealing with your doubts, deal with your practice. And these doubts will disappear. And then we'll say, I don't understand how Krishna created this earth. I don't understand how I digest. I don't understand how my nails are growing. My nails are growing. How? Why? Krishna has his reasons. He created this whole thing, machine. This is like a machine, the whole universe. It's just like somehow people are getting born, people die, seasons are changing, and all these things. And this is an extraordinary machine. So instead of trying to figure out machine, I try to figure out Krishna's janma, his activities, his birth. How is he born? How is he doing? Why is he doing? Something like this. So I wouldn't pay too much attention to this. Just said, okay, I don't understand. I just don't understand. But maybe one day I will understand. And one day you should understand, because one day will be Sachitananda. You'll be full of bliss, eternity and knowledge. And you'll say, oh, this is how it works. Oh, okay, now I understand. Prito Prabhu, for the end, Prito Prabhu told this very nice example. We said when he was a very young boy in Mappen, Germany. This is the border of Holland. he would be, this was just after the war, the Second World War in the 50s or whatever, he was growing up. And he has heard in his village that there are moving stairs in the, department stores. The moving store, the stairs. But he would think, because he has this mind, and he would think, how can stairs move, Because some people went to shopping in a big city in Hamburg, I don't know where was the, and they came back and said, we went to the department store, the stairs are moving. So he said he would stand there, he was a child, He said he would stand in the stairs, under the stairs, and he would imagine, how could this move? Imagine you're a child and you think, how can stair move? So he would think about this, and he could not make a conclusion. Then his mother took him one day to shopping, and he went and he said, this is how it works. So this is exactly. We cannot understand how can Krishna make 2 steps in the whole universe? How is it possible? But one day we will say, this is how it works. Hare Krishna. Okay, I think this is it. I know we have exceeded, unless there's another doubt. Then, Shri Gopashtami ki jai, Shri Krishna and Balaram enter in the forest ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.